It was nearly midnight when my phone buzzed. I thought it might be my son, maybe checking in before our long-awaited family trip to Hawaii. The one I had planned, paid for, and dreamed about for years. But the message wasn't what I expected. "Mom, you won't be coming with us. My wife thinks it's best if it's just her family this time. Thanks for arranging everything." For a moment, I didn't breathe. My hands froze above the table, the glow from the phone lighting up the half-packed sunscreen bottles and travel kits I'd prepared for my grandchildren. I had labeled each one carefully, their names, their favorite colors, little touches only a grandmother would think of. Another message followed, like salt on an open wound. "Please don't take it personally. It's just easier this way." Easier for whom, I wondered. For the woman who married my son and decided family came with conditions? Or for my son, who no longer saw me as part of his family? The house was quiet, except for the low hum of the refrigerator. The clock ticked like it was counting down to the moment my heart would break completely. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry yet. What I felt was smaller, a kind of hollow shame. The kind that makes you realize you've been invisible for a long time. You just hadn't noticed. I thought about calling him, asking why, but what could I say? "Please, let me come." No, I'd already given too much. The money, the effort, the love that stretched across decades. Instead, I turned on my old laptop, the one that held a folder labeled Hawaii Family Trip. Inside it was every booking, every itinerary, every dollar I'd saved since retiring, $21,763. My life's quiet sacrifices, now funding a trip I wasn't even allowed to attend. I hovered over the button that said freeze account. My finger trembled. I didn't click, not yet. Revenge wasn't what I wanted. Clarity was. So I opened a blank document instead and typed the first name that came to mind. Carol. Then Beverly, Louise, Francis. Women from church, forgotten women like me. That's when it hit me. Maybe this money wasn't meant for those who erased me. Maybe it was meant to remind someone unseen that they still mattered. That night I didn't freeze the account, but I did freeze something else. My silence. And in the stillness, a new plan began to form. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds, but the house felt colder than ever. I made coffee out of habit, though it tasted like nothing. Every corner of the kitchen was filled with reminders of the trip that was no longer mine. The stack of matching shirts I'd ordered, the little bag of seashell necklaces I'd wrapped for the kids, the travel journal I'd meant to fill with memories we'd never make. I tried to tell myself it wasn't personal. That's what his message had said, after all. Don't take it the wrong way. But how else does a mother take being erased? When my husband James was alive, we'd promised that one day, when the family was big enough, we'd return to Hawaii. Not for us, but for the next generation. I'd imagined us all there, the kids playing in the waves, the adults laughing around a bonfire, James's photo at the center of the table as we lit candles in his memory. That dream had carried me through 3 long years of saving. Every tutoring shift, every old chair I sold, every cup of tea I didn't buy, it all went into a mason jar I called the Dream Fund. I even joked about it at Bible study, though no one knew what it was really for. I had built this trip from scraps of hope and sleepless nights, and now I was being told I'd done my part, as if love had an expiration date. I opened my laptop again, the cursor blinking like it was waiting for me to choose between pain and peace. This time, I clicked into the bank account. There it was, the total balance, sitting quietly like a reflection of everything I'd given. I scrolled down and saw 6 linked cards, all connected to my account. Flights, villa, car rentals, excursions, food, entertainment. Every transaction would run through me, the woman who was no longer invited. A dull calm settled over me. If they could choose to exclude me so easily, then I could choose too. My mouse hovered over freeze account. I took a deep breath, then clicked. A pop-up appeared. Are you sure you want to pause all transactions? Yes. A second message. Linked cards will be disabled immediately. Yes again. And just like that, 3 years of sacrifice turned into 10 seconds of strength. They were ready to fly off to paradise, but they'd soon learn. Paradise runs on more than tickets. It runs on trust. For 2 days I said nothing. Not to my son, not to his wife, not to anyone. The world outside kept moving. Neighbors mowed lawns, children rode bikes, and the mailman waved like any other morning. Inside, my phone stayed face down on the kitchen table. I didn't need to see the group chat, the packing photos, or Tanya's latest post that read, "Off to paradise. Just family this time, just family." I stared at those words longer than I should have. It's strange how 4 little words can carry so much cruelty wrapped in politeness. The morning of their flight, I woke up before dawn. The air felt heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath. I poured myself a cup of peppermint tea, the same kind James used to make when we couldn't sleep. I sat in his old chair by the window, the one he called the lookout. From there, I could see the bird bath he built 20 years ago, still, silent, waiting. At 8:15 a.m., I imagined them at the airport, laughing, checking in their bags, the kids tugging at their parents' hands. My son probably thought everything was running smoothly. Tanya probably smiled her perfect smile, confident everything had gone according to her plan. That's when it would have happened. The first declined charge, then another, and another. I pictured their expressions as the clerk politely said, "I'm sorry, sir, the payment isn't going through." Nathan's confusion, Tanya's irritation, her parents whispering questions, the kids fidgeting, sensing something was wrong. I didn't need to be there to see it. I'd lived that silence before, the one that follows when people realize they've pushed too far. 10 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. First one call, then another, then 10. "Mom, hey, can you check the account real quick? Something's wrong with the booking, we're getting errors." "Mom, please, the kids are scared, just fix it." I didn't pick up. I just sat there, sipping my tea, the faint taste of mint mixing with something bittersweet. Peace. Because it wasn't revenge, it was a reminder. A mother's quiet way of saying, love doesn't mean limitless access. By 9 a.m., I had 27 missed calls. The house stayed silent, except for the wind brushing against the window. But as their world unraveled at the airport, something inside me finally began to rebuild. A new kind of strength I hadn't felt in years. By the time the calls stopped, the silence in the house felt different. It wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean, like the air after a storm. I placed the phone gently on the counter and smiled, not from spite, but from something much deeper. Peace. An email notification blinked across my laptop screen. Booking cancellation confirmed. The resort had processed my freeze request and refunded the full amount. The villa, the car rental, the excursions, all reversed. Every dollar I had given in good faith now sat quietly back in my account. I leaned back and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like a background character in my own family story. I felt free. Later that night, I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it, "Those Who Deserve to Be Seen." One by one, I typed names that had long been tucked away in memory. Carol, Louise, Frances, Beverly, Nora, Denise. Each woman had her own quiet heartbreak. Each one had been overlooked, forgotten, or taken for granted. And suddenly, I realized I wasn't alone. There were so many of us, women who had poured love into people who couldn't be bothered to look back. So I made a decision. If my family didn't want me on their trip, I would build a new one, not with obligation, but with choice. The next morning, I called the same travel agent I'd worked with for months. Her voice brightened when she heard me. "Mrs. Monroe, are we rebooking for next year?" "Not exactly," I said. "Same villa, new guests." That week, 6 phone calls changed everything. Every conversation began with confusion, then disbelief, then tears. "You're taking me where?" Carol had whispered. To Hawaii, I said softly, because you deserve to feel the ocean too. There was no guilt, no second guessing. I didn't owe anyone an explanation, especially not those who had turned me into a checkbook with wrinkles. I owed something to myself, though, to live before it was too late. As I finalized the bookings under my name, I placed a framed photo of James on my desk. His smile, warm and mischievous as ever, seemed to say, "It's about time." The flight they lost became the flight that saved me. And what waited in Hawaii wasn't revenge, but redemption. The air in Hawaii felt softer than I remembered, like the island itself was exhaling, ready to hold whatever you brought to it. When our plane touched down, the 6 women beside me pressed their faces to the window, their eyes wide with disbelief and wonder. I had seen that look before, on my grandchildren when they were small. But this time, it wasn't children rediscovering the world. It was women remembering they still belonged to it. The villa stood high on a hill, overlooking waves that shimmered like melted glass. Inside, sunlight danced across the walls, and for a moment, I imagined James walking beside me, laughing at how proud I looked, just unlocking the front door. I set his framed photo on the dining table, not as a decoration, but as a reminder. Love doesn't die, it just finds new ways to exist. That first evening, we sat together under string lights, passing dishes, refilling glasses, and laughing about things we'd all thought we'd forgotten how to find funny. Carol told stories about her son she hadn't spoken to in years. Beverly toasted to not cleaning up after anyone but ourselves. And Frances cried quietly when she saw the view from her room. No one apologized for existing. No one asked to take up less space. We were all just there, fully, finally, freely. Each night, we lit a single candle beside James's picture. Every woman would say something they wished someone had told them long ago. You are allowed to rest. You're not invisible. You don't need to earn love. You still matter. On the last night, we walked the beach barefoot, the moon silvering the waves. The water curled around our ankles, and the wind carried a peace I hadn't felt since before loss had a name. Standing there, I whispered to the sea, "I'm not angry anymore." And I wasn't. Not at Nathan, not at Tanya, not at anyone. Because I finally understood. You can't lose people who never truly saw you. Back home, days later, I received an email from Nathan. The subject line read, "Just want to clear the air." He wrote about misunderstandings, stress, the kids, and money. He even asked if I could return the deposit. I didn't reply, because peace doesn't require permission, and forgiveness doesn't always require a conversation. Instead, I went to the shore outside my house, lit my last lavender candle, and whispered, "Thank you." Not to them, but to myself, for choosing to stop begging for space in someone else's story and finally writing my own. So if you've ever been left out, forgotten, or replaced, remember this. You are not a background character. You are the author. And your story isn't over. It's just finally yours.